Person in Person is brought to you by the Perineum Group, the only truly centrist news organization.
That's right, Greg. We're in the sweet spot between partisan extremes, when tain't the left and tain't the right.
It's Perineum.
Tonight, on Person in Person.
Baby on board.
Smuggle, 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 smuggle chameleons.
Bigfoot season.
MSN stands for Microsoft Something Necromancer.
Oh, you silly goose.
Detention begets Divination. All these stories plus sports, weather, food crime, and a movie review. That's tonight
on Person in Person.
Good evening wherever you are, whoever you are, and welcome to Person in Person. I'm Gene Person.
And I'm Greg Person.
No relation. Person in Person is a news show for people who don't like news shows. By us, people who don't like news shows.
It's true. If you don't like the whole idea of what we're doing here, if you hear that this is a news show and you think, oh, that's not for me, well, guess what? It's not for us either.
That's right. The new president has been hard at work implementing a fairly steady stream of half measures and slapping on those Band-Aids.
Well, that's what he was hired to do, after all.
Depending on where you live, COVID vaccinations are starting to finally happen. So maybe this guy gets to do a couple of shots despite my allergy to alcohol.
Shots, etc.
But enough about us. Let's pop the cork on tonight's stories. It's main news!
Okay, so first of all, a bit of quasi-local news. A man in Beaverton, Oregon saw an unlocked car with the engine running in the parking lot of a store. And, like you do, he took it. The only problem was there was a 4-year-old kid inside. So he takes the kid back, berates the mother for leaving her kid unattended in a car that is running with the doors unlocked, and then takes the car, sans kid, and the police find it in the nearby city of Portland a few hours later. Now, I'm not a parent, as you know, so I would never judge any parent, but the car thief is right, and this woman is a terrible owner of both cars and kids. Just irresponsible and a callous, selfish, horrible person.
A couple quick exceptions I take to the verbiage you used. Owner of kids? No. You are a caregiver of kids, but ownership of kids, yeah, that's what you're describing sounds like slavery.
Well, you can make a kid do what you tell them and you don't have to pay them, so.
Okay, but you're trying to teach them life skills.
Well, I mean, you could make that argument about.
Yeah, I make my kid throw his trash in the trash can, but it's not because I don't want to throw the trash away myself. It's because I'm trying to teach him to pick up after himself.
Well, sure. I mean, as a source of free labor, children are terrible, but they, as they get bigger, they get more effective.
Okay. The other thing is, like, what is the parent supposed to do in this situation? Sure, it's not a great idea to leave your kid in a car. I assume she left it running so that the kid wouldn't freeze. I'm assuming that probably just slipped her mind not to lock it. That's pretty irresponsible, but we are in a pandemic, so you don't want to take your kid out, especially if they're 4 and maybe don't like wearing a mask. That's a tough spot that parent's in.
I get that, but you can't leave anything in an unlocked car with the engine running because this is what happens.
That's true.
And I mean, everybody knows that, I'm not saying I don't have sympathy for it. I'm just saying I probably have a little bit more sympathy for the car thief, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Because he impulsively commits a felony because it's right there dangling in front of his face. It's completely understandable. He looks in the back seat. He's already stressed out because he's thinking, should I have done this? Am I going to get away with it? What was this even for? And he looks back in the back seat. He sees a 4-year-old kid who is definitely old enough to have an opinion about what's happening right now. And the car thief, I can't imagine his panic. I really feel for him, and I hope he's okay, because he's found himself trapped in the premise of a 90s screwball comedy, except it's real life and therefore not funny.
Well, right. And I mean, he's got to worry at that point if he's facing charges for kidnapping too.
Right. And that's why he had to bring the kid back and make sure that he talked to the mother to be absolutely clear. I am not kidnapping this kid.
I mean, I understand that he was doing a little bit of CYA in that situation, but I'm glad he brought the kid back. How did the kid react to all this?
You know, the article doesn't say. I'm going to guess that this is going to be great fodder for either therapy or Twitter, which is the free therapy of the people. Mm-hmm. I think that he's going to have stuff to talk about with somebody someday, probably not too long from now.
Yeah. You know what I thought of in the moment that you were talking about this boy in this car? I thought, like, well, what if the boy has, like, a favorite excavator toy, like little Gene does? And what if that was left in the car and the boy was going to be despondent? And it just made me sick to my stomach. Parenting does the weirdest things to your brain.
Well, yeah, because you have this, this little appendage that's also an independent living thing. So that means that you can't always have them by your side and under your gaze, which means things like this can happen, which is why you lock your goddamn doors.
Yeah, every night I lock my doors. Leave the windows wide open. But...
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, you got to get air circulating. You don't want people to get ague or consumption.
All right. Our next story. A man tried to smuggle 74 chameleons through an Austrian airport, hiding the animals in socks and empty ice cream containers in his luggage. Chameleons are a protected species in Austria. These particular chameleons were smuggled in from Tanzania. The chameleons were discovered and taken to a local zoo. 3 did not survive. The man now faces a fine of up to 6,000 euros. That's about $7,300 in American money. Here's the thing. Protected or not, it's not illegal to import those chameleons. You just have to go through the proper channels, pay for permits and whatnot. So this guy was just trying to shirk his paperwork. So the fact that he was getting fined may be a little bit of chameleon karma.
Oh, I like that. I like how you come in, you go. You come and go.
Yeah.
In with that joke and then out again. It's very good.
Given that the chameleons were hidden among his socks, I wonder, do chameleons do argyle? Because I know some octopuses and cuttlefish do.
Well, not to step on your joke with facts, but I believe I remember hearing that the chameleon actually changes color in response to temperature more than anything. So I guess we'd have to know,
interesting.
Were these like warm toasty socks or were they like thinner dress socks?
Yeah, that's a good question. That wasn't covered in the details of the article, but now I really want to know. Were they thermals? God, I love a good thermal sock. Don't get me started on socks.
This time of year, I'm going to guess that they were pretty thick, fluffy socks.
Yeah. When pressed for comment, the man was quoted as saying, "Loving would be easy if your colors were like my dreams." No word yet on exactly what he meant by that.
Well, red, gold, and green, right?
I would assume those are the colors that he intended the chameleon to change into?
I mean, I'm just saying that those are the colors of my dreams. All my dreams are in red, gold, and green.
I'm pretty sure those are the colors of my socks.
Nice. Now, I do have a bone to pick with you about this story, though.
Okay.
Because when I saw your notes for the story yesterday and it said smuggle chameleons, I thought it said snuggle chameleons at first, and I was really excited. I mean, it's still a good story, but I want lizards that want to cuddle and not just to steal your body heat or kill you.
Yeah, I don't know if those snuggly chameleons exist. I don't know if that's a thing.
Well, not with that attitude.
What's our next story, Greg?
Okay, so Representative Justin Humphrey of Oklahoma, who you might remember for being a big fan of hydroxychloroquine and calling pregnant women hosts because he's gross and dumb.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I'm setting up these priors for him because I want you to know the context for the latest thing he did. He proposed a Bigfoot hunting season in the state of Oklahoma.
This is just an excuse to kill people, right?
Well, no, because he actually doesn't want to kill the Bigfoot. He wants to trap it alive for science. And he believes that they can do this, but they need to have a season for the Bigfoot hunters to come out because, there are Bigfoot hunters now who roam around in the woods and bang sticks on trees and make hooting noises at each other.
Oklahoma?
Well, and this is another thing that was weird to me because to me, Bigfoot is has always been a creature of the Northwest.
Right.
Right? Like Washington, Oregon, California, maybe Canada and Alaska. That's where Bigfoot lives, right? And
the places where the real forest is?
Right, exactly. Like, there's no proper woods in Oklahoma. Bigfoot needs dense forest. Because, for one, it's his natural habitat, as we all know. And for two, it's the only possible explanation for the fact that no one has ever seen one.
Well, and that's likely because they all burned alive this last summer.
Oh my, I'm destroyed by that. The thought of it, all those Bigfoots. Oh God.
Yeah.
Well, but here's the thing about that though. They're so wily, they've managed to avoid detection. And in fact, I have heard people say that Bigfoots actually have sophisticated alien cloaking technology, and that's why no one sees them.
Oh, interesting. You know how we can smell if snow is coming in the Northwest and smell if rain is coming often?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I wonder if Bigfoot could smell that fire was coming.
Well, we could all smell that fire was coming. I mean,
well, that's true. It does have a telltale odor.
Right. Yeah. We knew the fire was coming from like 20 miles away. So I'm sure if the Bigfoot is smart enough to evade detection all this time, they're looking at the horizon, they're smelling the air, and they're like, well, we head north, I guess.
Yeah.
So I wish them all the best in Canada. But the thing is, thinking about the very idea that this dummy could think that Bigfoot lives in Oklahoma, it did offend me.
Right.
Because Bigfoot is ours. Get your own thing.
Right.
And I do want to stress, a lot of times legislators will do fun things like this for a goof or to make some kind of sardonic point or even just to amuse children and get them engaged in the idea of government.
Mm-hmm.
This is not that. He earnestly wants this for himself and his Bigfoot hunting comrades.
Okay, so he's obviously not too bright, right? I mean,
I'm not going to go so far as to say that everyone who believes in Bigfoot is a moron.
No. That's not what I'm saying.
I'm just saying this guy's a moron.
Right, using the power of the government. I don't know. I feel like this is really foolish.
Well, and I will say, though, I will go so far as to say anyone who thinks that Bigfoot lives in Oklahoma is a moron.
Okay.
So what's our next story?
Okay, Microsoft was granted a patent last month for the creation of a new kind of chatbot modeled after a, quote, past or present entity, such as a friend, relative, celebrity fictional character, or historical figure. No worries, though, Microsoft isn't planning on resurrecting the dead anytime soon. Tim O'Brien, the GM of AI for the company, said there's no plan for this and admitted that the idea is, quote, disturbing. So one interesting thing is this is the first case I've seen of AI that's actually focused on recreating an actual person. Even if they didn't plan on using it, this is Venture Brothers technology.
Well, it's funny. I hate it when people say such and such a tech bro dystopian surveillance thing is Black Mirror. Because yes, we know that's the point of the show Black Mirror.
Right.
But this is literally an episode of Black Mirror.
It really is. It's
it's one of their better ones.
Yeah, the boyfriend dies, and I remember. O'Brien pointed out that the patent was actually filed in 2017, before Microsoft did as much ethical review as they do nowadays. You know, Microsoft, the ethics company.
Crazy about ethics.
And anyway, we shouldn't expect the technology to become anything until they've crossed a certain threshold in the COVID vaccination process.
Oh, because
unless they're implanting the chips, how are they going to upload all that data?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, we all got to get our 5G chips.
Right.
I'm really excited to get my chip because I'm always getting lost places.
Oh,
and it
right.
would be cool if I could just pick up a phone and call the secret police and they just come get me.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the technology likely wouldn't bring back dead relatives predating social media. But it does make me think about that episode of Black Mirror, and certainly the hologram Kanye West purchased for Kim Kardashian of her dad, or maybe Joshua from War Games.
Well, here's the thing, though, is I think you actually could do this before social media. For a corpus, if you had somebody who had a lot of written works or a lot of works about them or things quoting them, you could do it. Anyhow, I hate this technology. There is nothing worse that I can imagine than to die and go to my sweet reward and to know that there is some version of me that is just retweeting my old tweets.
Right.
I would come back to life so I could kill myself. So this one goes along with the stories that you've been finding lately of dead bodies that are not dead bodies.
Uh-huh.
And this is as this seems to keep happening, I feel like as with Dolazols, this is something that we need to come up with a name for.
Okay.
Because it seems to be happening often enough, so maybe we can spitball some stuff. But in this story, firefighters in Michigan said an attempted goose rescue on a frozen river turned out to be the proverbial wild goose chase when the suspected injured bird turned out to be a hunting decoy.
This is an episode of Looney Tunes.
Right, except I don't think any of the firefighters ended up marrying the decoy.
Yeah, of
But
course.
I also don't know. They didn't include it, but I would assume not, because they're firefighters, and all women want them, and all men also want them. So they're probably not hard up for dates.
Yeah.
But I will say, as I was thinking about this story, it actually was kind of heartwarming to me, and it's one of those little things that when you think about it, somebody thought they saw a goose in trouble on a frozen lake, and they were like, I've got to call somebody. I've got to help solve this goose problem. So they call, and then instead of just saying, who cares, it's a goose, a team of professional rescuers came out with all their gear. They got out there, they attempted to rescue the goose that was not a goose, and then this is a quote from the article. This is what they had to say about the whole thing. In the end, we can sleep well at night. A bird is not suffering.
Wow.
I love that. I love that.
It's
They're
beautiful.
like, yeah, sure. It's like, hours out of our day, but it's just, thank God no birds were hurt.
Like, how great are
Because
firefighters really?
I love firefighters. For me, it's firefighters and astronauts.
Yeah.
And occasionally airline pilots when they're super competent and not drunk.
Firefighters, astronauts, Spanish art restoration professionals.
Yes.
We have our
Those
things.
guys are on some very different shit. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's some people, you can look in the mirror and you can know you're making a difference. Like when you pull a plastic duck out of a frozen lake, or when you turn the face of our Lord Jesus Christ into some horrible monkey beast.
Right. It's the same thing, really.
Yeah. Swings and roundabouts.
Our final story tonight, Thailand, Justice Minister Somsak Thepsuthien proposed giving astrology subjects and fortune-telling lessons to prisoners so they could secure jobs. 35% of inmates in the country want to work, but there's no job for them after prison. Another proposed job for ex-cons was raising chickens for cockfighting. Importantly, they were looking for training that required a low investment. So, okay, but if they're in prison for being a con artist, you're just giving them more tools at this point. I don't know what fortune telling is like in other countries, but it's hard to imagine it being any more of a con than it is here.
Well, I'm actually going to take the other side of this one, weirdly enough, because I don't know if you remember, I used to work as a fortune teller.
Yeah, I know that. Yeah, I remember that you were on one of those psychic phone lines.
Yeah, and I gotta say, I think fortune telling is actually something constructive and wholesome that they can do with their time, because basically what it is therapy. You're listening to people, and sure, what you're telling them is not actually based on the stars or spirits or psychic powers, but you try to give people good advice. You don't want to steer them wrong. And if you're at the point where you're seeking advice from a fortune teller, really just the most basic advice is gonna be better than what you would have come up with.
I think that it's pretty dangerous to compare fortune telling to therapy. Something which gives a temporary boost of mood to something that can have life-changing benefit.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, therapy's not all it's cracked up to be.
That's funny. prisoners who wish to become fortune tellers will be required to meditate and read astrology books. I think it's really good that they're looking at curbing crime by giving people training for actual life and work. But it feels like there have to be other jobs they could give them training on. I don't know. I feel like this is a kind of a weird story, but it was interesting enough that I wanted it included.
I think it's great. I don't know what the Thai fortune-telling traditions are, but I might actually research it just for funsies.
Yeah, that'd be interesting to learn more about. One thing is for sure, Greg, and that is that one night in Bangkok makes a bad Miss Cleo.
You know, I read I'm sliding right past your chess reference because I done told you about the chess. But I will say that Miss Cleo, I read some interviews with Miss Cleo, and she didn't make out so good on the thing.
Yeah, I'm aware of the story. Yeah.
I mean, because the company that I worked for got bought out by the company that had the Miss Cleo brand, and so every day when you logged in, there would be like a little peppy message from Miss Cleo. But she basically did all that crap for free.
Right.
She didn't, get any extra money out of the commercials or any of that stuff.
And she didn't even own the rights to her character, which is just awful for her.
Right. And it turns out, I didn't know this at the time, she is a real Jamaican, though.
Yeah.
That's her real Jamaican accent, which threw me for a loop because I did not think so.
The folks that started that whole psychic phone line scam ended up making billions off of it and paying like a paltry fine as a result of scamming people out of just so much money.
Well, is it scamming or is it mini therapy sessions?
It's scamming. When you have a business model that's charged by the minute with, connection fees and strategies to keep the customers on the line for as long as possible, it's a scam. When you have no mechanism for disputing the charges and actually getting the money back, when you're ruining people's lives and livelihoods, all for the sake of a few minutes of feeling better, it's a fucking scam, Greg.
On the other hand, it's still cheaper than therapy.
It depends on whether or not you have health insurance, but this is America, so...
So it's cheaper than therapy. So phone psychics are heroes, is what you're saying.
No, that's not at all what I'm saying. How dare you?
No, I agree. I mean, not all heroes wear capes. Some don't even wear clothes because you're working from home with a headset.
Now you're describing my job.
Right? Well, mine too. I've been in my pajamas since 11 o'clock this morning.
All right. Well, that wraps up our main stories for this week. Let's move on to the emotional weather.
Greetings, gentle listeners. If you enjoy this podcast, you may also like Brose, a mirthy talk show starring 4 bros who sip wine and consider questions submitted by you, the audience, about current events, pop culture, and which Muppet you should get tattooed on your back. Subscribe to Brose wherever you get your podcasts. That's BROSE. Brose, the podcast for those who drink rosé.
Ladies and gentlemen, the emotional weather this week is bitter, fitter, and Twitter. So for bitter, I've chosen the San Antonio Zoo in San Antonio, Texas is offering bitter ex-lovers a chance at revenge by naming a cockroach or rat after their exes before it's fed to another animal. The cost is only $5 for a cockroach or $25 for a pre-frozen rat. I stress pre-frozen because you don't, the other stories that we've covered about rats. But animals do eat them, so, it's a circle of life. The zoo has also offered herbivore options, which are more symbolic, but will still be fed to animals at the zoo. I think this is a great way to fundraise.
See, I'm curious about who are the petty sons of bitches who are paying the extra money for the rat?
Right, especially when a certain Canadian company will mail your exes a literal box of shit.
I'm saying, how is it more effective to pay the zoo to name a cockroach Sheila than to just watch them feed the animal a cockroach and say, that's Sheila right there.
Hey, Sheila.
It's like...
Can you say King Butterfly? King Butterfly! Lower.
That's a pretty solid, if obscure reference.
Yeah, well.
But I'll say, I think this is like picturing naked people in your head. you can do it for free.
But, nonprofit organizations, they need to come up with ways to get the donations in, because if you're not constantly pounding out that messaging, it will dwindle and drop off.
Well, I have a fundraising idea for our show. I have a box of Danishes here, and I will name a Danish after your ex, and then I will eat it for $50.
$50, folks. That's the going rate. One Danish named after the person of your choice, consumed by Greg Person.
And I'll do it I'll do an ASMR thing, and we'll drop it in the feed, and it'll be really gross and weird.
Oh, dude, we need to get you a webcam. We'll do a full-blown YouTube video for every purchase.
Yes, we will potentially do that. I don't know.
In fact, I'll tell you what. We get one person to sign up for our Patreon for a month.
See, I was playing, but now I'm scared. But I also kind of want it to happen. So, a lot of emotions around this one.
And we will record. The first person to subscribe to our Patreon, we will record a personal thank you message and post it to YouTube and into the feed here.
We would literally do that for any Patreon subscriber. Like I could see us doing that as a segment.
Yeah, we probably will.
Every week.
Now, listen, I'm not doing this to beg for money. We are fully aware that our podcast is new. We may not have Patreon subscribers ever, let alone anytime soon. But, what's the harm in spitballing incentives?
Oh, totally. And whatever other freaky stuff you guys want. Just throw something out there and we'll figure out a dollar value for it.
Yeah, everything's negotiable.
Now, for my bitter story, doctors who are treating COVID and also advising folks who are taking care of themselves at home or who aren't even sure if they have it necessarily, to test themselves by seeing how far away they can smell ground coffee. Because it's, of course, got a strong and distinctive aroma. It's, pretty much every household has some. And it's such a good indicator, in fact, that they've even started using the coffee smell in anosmia test strips.
Interesting.
And somewhere between 50 and 80% of COVID patients will experience anosmia for at least a time during their illness. So as a way to test yourself without testing yourself, it's a thing that can work. But also, they do recommend, they have real tests where they fuck your nose with the swab.
Yeah.
And you might you want to do that one unless you literally can't for some reason. If you don't have the option to get a real COVID test, this is a good choice. A taster's choice.
Fitter. In Great Britain, a sports nutrition company has set a world record by creating a protein bar weighing 530 pounds. The company, called Grenade, revealed it is a giant version of the Carb Killa chocolate chip cookie dough protein bar. It's the equivalent of over 3,700 of the regular protein bars, measuring almost 6 feet long and 2 feet wide. The creation of the giant bar was to celebrate the 5th anniversary of the Carb Killa product line. Gains, bro. Gains.
Sick gains. Imagine if we go to England and we Lady and the Tramp that thing, we get so swole.
Yeah.
I'm ready, bro. I'm ready for sick gains. I'm ready for sick gains to come into my life. And actually, this dovetails very well, naturally enough, because they're kind of on the same subject, with my emotional weather for Fitter. I want to preface this by saying I knew that this would happen someday, and I'm glad I lived to see it. Because a new study has shown that when you exercise, your human body produces a powerful hormone that improves physical performance, capacity, and fitness. And scientists have shown that if you just take this hormone, if you inject it into some mice, for example, it works on them too. So it's literally an exercise drug that you can shoot up. And it doesn't shrink your balls, it doesn't give you acne or make you go into roid rage. And it just makes you younger. The researchers say that the findings represent new possibilities for addressing age-related physical decline. Give it to me. I want it. I want it right now, please.
Fascinating. Yes. How much? How much?
Literally.
Do we have to donate to a Patreon? What's the game here?
Right. Do you need me to eat a Danish? Like, whatever I have to do, literally hook it to my veins. Very excited about this. Hope to hear more about it in the future.
So we noticed in our notes this week that for the emotional weather subject Twitter, we had both chosen the same subject. I titled mine Reddit versus Hedge Fund, the game stoppening.
And I called mine the GameStop Pump and Dump.
Both are pretty appropriate. So let's talk about what happened here.
Well, this has been like the only thing that was on my Twitter all week.
Yeah.
And
same.
I was for it. I am into it.
So Reddit is a site with a lot of subreddits dedicated to specific topics, and one of those was Wall Street Bets. A Redditor had noticed that hedge funds, which play this game of shorting stocks where they are effectively betting on the failure of these businesses, but also kind of driving these businesses out of business by shorting them. It also makes it less possible that they would be able to access capital that will help them and things. This Redditor noticed this was happening to GameStop and was like, I like the GameStop. Let's all buy some GameStop stock.
And it took off from there in a big way. And so what happens is the price goes up, and they had shorted the price so much lower that, because the thing about short sales is the shares that you borrow for a short sale, you eventually have to buy back for the person you borrowed them from. And so these hedge funds that had gotten into this gamble were going to be on the hook for billions of dollars, like enough to drive them into insolvency, which is the part that I really like.
Yeah, it's beautiful. It really is a thing of beauty that, like, one of the Redditors was named Potato in My Ass. We're able to bankrupt this hedge fund.
Now, of course, there aren't going to be any real consequences for this because, it's like counting cards in a casino. If they decide you're winning too much, they'll just kick you out. And that's exactly what happened to the Redditors. Yeah,
although it's not coming from the government. It's coming from these day trading websites that are sort of self-regulating. And I don't know what kind of compelled them to do this.
Well, I have a couple theories on that. One is that Robinhood, the investment app Robinhood, their trades were guaranteed by a company that had a major investment in Melvin Capital.
Oh, interesting.
So there's a conflict of interest there. Also, I have read, allegedly, not allegedly that I have read it, but it is alleged by reporters who are credible that President Uncle Grandpa Joe Hairsniffer did actually call the CEO and the C-suite executives of Robinhood to tell them to shut down any trade on GameStop and AMC.
Interesting.
And speaking of the SEC, Elizabeth Warren, we love her, don't we, folks? She actually wrote a letter to the SEC the other day saying that these Redditors should all be prosecuted for fraud and that they are essentially terrorists who are trying to undermine the foundation of our economy. So
she did?
If you were... Yes. In fact, I can send you the text of the whole thing. It did get leaked.
Please do.
We could even put in a link on the show notes if you want to.
Yeah, why not?
But yeah, if anyone out there is still confused about which side Elizabeth Warren is on, here's your sign. In the sense that this is a sign, and also in the Bill Engvall sense because you're an idiot. You should have known. But again, this is not going to change anything, but if it gave a hedge fund manager or a billionaire or any of those scumbags in government or the SEC, if they had a moment of panic or fear, I feel good about that.
Yeah, no, I mean, I feel good about that too. I do think it's pretty wonderful that AMC as a company, as a result of all of this, was able to secure some enormous capital benefit from it. That was channels that were previously unavailable to them had opened back up, and they probably were able to save their company as a result of this.
I mean, I do want to go see movies again someday.
Well, yeah, I would like to as well. And I think, shorting stocks it's one of those weird, not very scrupulous games that people play. And and by people, I mean, of course, hedge fund finance people, which, I mean, using people is debatable. But
yeah, I mean, they're lizards in the shape of people. We know this.
But I think it's great to see a little, grassroots action actually taking hold and doing something that I didn't know was possible, which is beating them at their own game.
Well, and again, you can't really say that anybody's beat them at their own game, because if they decide that we don't get to play anymore, they get to just rage quit and unplug the controller.
That's the thing is, now that this has happened, this is going to be something that's looked at carefully for a long time, not just by the SEC and Wall Street insiders, but by the people who made this happen too. And they're gonna find another door.
I hope so. If a hedge fund manager never has another peaceful day, I will be happy.
As you know, every week our investigative team presents a detailed and harrowing story on food crime. This week, Greg Person has the story.
Folks, I'm doing it. They say if you come at the king, you best not miss. And I am not coming at this king, by which I mean George Foreman. Because George Foreman seems like a terrific guy, and also the former heavyweight champion of the world, so much respect to the champ. But I am coming for the George Foreman grill. I'm tired of the existence of this thing. It sucks. It produces dry, overcooked food. It's a pain in the ass to clean. And although everybody has one or has had one, nobody uses it. It's the PT Cruiser of the kitchen. It's a briefly trendy piece of junk that is just taking up space now.
Yeah, I've tried cooking burgers on a George Foreman grill. It's like the worst burger you've ever had.
Oh, it's a hockey puck.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're terrible. And this is why. I'm going to tell you, this is because it's a philosophical problem. All right? No gadget is going to make your cooking experience fundamentally better or easier. None of these things. You think by putting this thing on an incline and slapping two grills on either side of it, that's going to give you a faster, better meal? No, it's not. Because if you try to take shortcuts, you end up with hockey puck burgers and leather steaks, which, if you're listening to this, you already know because you have one, you used it once, and you put it away to never use it again.
That's true.
So, George Foreman grill, you basic.
Folks, it's sports.
Okay, I'm back on my bullshit. I'm here to drag the British again. With a sport called toe wrestling. It was invented in 1974 at the Old Royal Oak Inn, an establishment located in Staffordshire. Now, it was the brainchild of four friends who would get together to drink at the pub. They were complaining about the fact that the UK just couldn't produce any champion athletes. They weren't bringing home the gold like they used to back when they ran everything and it was illegal for people in other countries to have shoes. So they created this sport of toe wrestling, which is a sport that only they know about and compete in, and therefore a British person is sure to win.
Jesus Christ.
yeah, honestly, I would drag them harder, but it's just so sad.
It is.
I don't want to bag on him too hard for this because it's so pathetic, honestly.
But it sounds like all the other sports that we've had from Britain. It, even extreme ironing to some extent, but certainly shin kicking and ferret legging.
Yep. They're not good at sports. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But the rules of toe wrestling are about what you would figure. You and your opponents, you take off your shoes and socks, you interlock toes, and then it's basically arm wrestling with your feet.
Yeah, I'm having a really strong reaction right now, emotionally, to this.
To put your bare toes interlocked with another man's bare toes is
it's so gross. It's so gross.
On an island of absolute sicko freaks, this is probably the sickest thing they do. I would rather put beans on I'd rather put ketchup on beans than watch toe wrestling.
I would rather I would rather have mushrooms in my ears than watch toe wrestling.
I'd rather have mushrooms in my blood than watch toe wrestling.
I'd really like some mushrooms right now, to be honest.
I know. Oh my, and it got me thinking with the George Foreman grill too. Like, what if you had a mushroom Swiss burger right now?
Oh my God.
It was just a big juicy ass burger that was not cooked on a George Foreman grill.
But no, we've got toe wrestling.
This world sucks.
Okay, on to our new segment, the Podcast Shopping Network. So the as seen on TV product we're covering today is the Uroclub. So you're out golfing, as you do, but then nature calls. You really have to go, but the clubhouse is just so far away. You can't just duck into the woods because you're a shy peer. There's got to be a better way! Well, a urologist from Florida has a solution. The Uroclub. The Uroclub is a 7-iron golf club with a dummy shaft. Step 1, you unscrew the triple sealed and leak-proof cap. Step 2, you clip on the included privacy towel to your belt or waistband. Step 3, you pee into your golf club and then get back to whacking those balls. The Uroclub holds 18 ounces of pee. It's sold for $24.95 and includes free shipping. And if you buy 4, the fourth one is free.
I hate this product so much. And I'll tell you, how is this more private than peeing in the woods? How is it more private than just peeing into a bottle if you want to do that?
The thing is, it's not. The privacy towel that's included is green, so unless you're wearing some green pants, it looks like you've got a little pea kilt right in the front patch there.
Jesus. It's the stupidest thing. This is, in the grand tradition of infomercial products, It is solving a problem that nobody has by making a solution that is worse than solutions that already exist.
And that's what this segment is all about. So I'll be alternating the Podcast Shopping Network and Dad Tantrums week to week from now on.
Excellent. I do want to mention, though, too, just as a fun aside, did you know that I also have a dummy shaft?
I did not. Dummy thick?
Yes. Thank you for that. Oh, that's exactly what I was going to do. I set it up, you swang it, and brought it home. I love it.
Yeah, it's a hole-in-one. So now it's time for our out-of-frame movie review. The important thing about Out of Frame is that one of us has not seen the movie, and it's usually the one who's giving the actual review.
Not to, spoil the mystery or the joke for you, we've really pulled back the curtain of the prestige on this description.
As far as movie reviews go, the one benefit to having someone who has not seen the movie review it is that it's almost guaranteed to be spoiler-free unless that person is a really good guesser.
Well, in this case, we're going to be talking about the movie Avatar, which came out like 12 years ago, but one of us just saw it for the first time this week, so we're really excited to talk about it.
All right. So Avatar, as you know, is a movie about the internet.
Okay, go on.
Where the main character, who is played by Johnny Lee Miller.
Okay, I think I see where you're going with this, and I'm not sure you're 100% correct.
He's in trouble for something, let's say hacking hundreds of computers, and he ends up becoming a teenager and having to get back online for the first time in years, and he needs to choose a new online persona, and he decides to choose from a group of gifts an avatar that is let's say Charlie Brown.
Oh, interesting, because Charlie Brown is kind of a downtrodden everyman.
Well, I think it's very much in his wheelhouse to feel that way. The character, I mean, of let's call him 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Oh yeah, gotcha. So he's like cool.
Yeah, like cool enough to freeze water, like 0 degrees Celsius.
Right. So where do the blue monkeys come in? Because that's what people talk about in regard to this movie, is they're like, oh, the blue monkeys do this, the blue monkeys do that. How do they fit into this movie?
Well, okay, so as you know, the soundtrack prominently features Davy Jones and Mickey Dolenz and Peter Tork and Michael Nesmith. and they are unimaginably sad. And it's
Oh,
really
no.
kind of a downer.
I would hate to see those guys sad because they're usually, so upbeat and so full of jokes and japes.
Yeah. There's not a single chasing people through a hallway through all the different doors sequence to be had. It's really tragic.
Man, people said that this movie was an effects extravaganza, that, there was amazing CGI and 3D and stuff. Does that play in with the monkeys being really sad?
Well, it plays a fact in the monkeys being there at all because, Davy Jones is passed away, and they had to recreate him digitally along with Michael Nesmith. And as you know, Mickey Dolenz died in a car crash in the 60s and was replaced by a lookalike.
Oh, yeah, I think I heard that. Yeah, so let me ask you this. Do you think at Davy Jones' funeral they referred to the casket as Davy Jones's locker?
32 Degrees Fahrenheit decides to be Charlie Brown, and good grief, he gets into a lot of shenanigans. And the blue monkeys are around. They're kind of this nebulous threat that's hanging over his head, but it never actually materializes in any way that affects him. So I feel like they could have cut the blue monkey part out of the whole movie.
Dang. I thought this movie was supposed to be like an adventure, but it seems more like a claustrophobic, paranoid, kind of mournful story.
And honestly, a little chock full of cliche, which was a little disappointing because when he wakes up at the end and it's all a dream, it's like, that's a cop-out. Come on, James Cameron. You can do better than this.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to see this one.
Yeah.
It sounds cool in a weird way. I just don't know if that's quite what I'm looking for. Like, I was hoping for something that would be like, there would be like jungles and robot fights and stuff like that, but no.
Unfortunately, just another Pleasant Valley Sunday.
Thank you very much for that review. I really rely on your takes on these movies to decide whether or not to go see them, so I appreciate it.
As you should. Thank you. Our final segment tonight, as every week, is Person to Person in Person, where we share your valuable feedback with our audience. This week we have an email from G Person who writes, "Dear Persons, how are you? I am fine. I noticed a lot of crackle from the mic in the last episode and some computer noises. Care to explain yourselves? Sincerely, G Person." Well, first of all, G Person, fuck you.
Yeah, for real.
Don't take that tone with us. We do this for free. Come on. Secondly, it's Jerry's fault.
He kept trying to do this microphone licking thing like David Lee Roth, and it was off-putting. We didn't care for it. It was
downright gross, let's be honest. We're living in the age of a global pandemic. You don't need to be licking mics. Folks, that's all the news we have for you tonight. We invite you to participate in person, and there's so many ways to get yourself heard. Send us an email, personinpersonshow@gmail.com. Drop us a voicemail, 541-249-5933. Find us on Twitter @AnchorPersons and on Facebook @PersonInPersonShow. Find us on your favorite podcatchers. Please subscribe, review, and rate the podcast, or simply tell a friend. And be sure to check out our website. Until next time, this is Gene Person saying you should always end a comedy set with a callback.
And this is Greg Person saying, keep your toes in your socks. Good night.
I mean, I've been known to smuggle myself because I am, after all, a man with no conviction. I'm a man who doesn't know how to sell a contradiction.